What you're looking at here is my Everglades 243. It's 2005 model. This boat's about 12 years old. I have had it for going on almost 3 years now. Done a lot of upgrades and various things to the boat, but recently on one 4th of July trip, I saw something that was a little disturbing. Didn't know what was going on, but I want to kind of show you a little bit about what's happening. So recently I've got this temporary tarp over the boat, but if you'll look right up here, there's a regular, basically floodlight, whatever you want to call it. In the front, there's one in the back, and they're just regular bulbs, kind of like a halogen style bulb. Bulb hadn't given me issues, light didn't give me any issues, with the exception of the boat sat for, I don't know, a month or two, and it rained a bunch at the beginning of the summer. This is August 2017. So it's rained a lot in June and July. Took it down to the Keys. What I noticed on July 4th is some of my passengers in the rear seating were getting wet, and this light was filling up with water. And, well, it was doing its job in part, in fact, it wasn't leaking, so it was trapping water in the top. And now the top to the Everglades 243 is, if you have one or you don't, you know, it's hollow. You can look in the hole and you can see, not the whole thing, but you can see there's these two areas for the speaker, and then down the middle there's a channel, so all of that so you can install things. And on the sides you notice where it's actually not hollow, it's just kind of, you know, there's a top and a bottom, and that's kind of all. It's maybe two pieces of fiberglass, but it's not ram cap style, which is what this boat is, you know, famous for, at least the hull. And so you know, one issue is, and I never noticed it, I knew that it was a problem. I kind of saw that there was water up there, but when I first got the boat, there were kind of like regular car audio speakers back here, and I replaced them, I think last year, about a year and a half ago, with these JLs, and I put some up front as well. You can see them up here, and I've got this temporary tarp over to stop the rain so this can dry out. But what is happening is that if you look, the water somehow was getting in the top and draining back here, and the lowest point obviously is these new speakers. So when I stick my hand in this light hole, you know, light was filling up, and it kind of looks like the lowest point. Even if you park the boat at an angle, jack the nose up, water still settles in there. It runs through this thing and settles here and here. And so I've yanked these two LEDs out, and you can see there's all kinds of, I guess, mildew and mold in there. So it's a big, you know, it's obviously a matter for concern. I've put it off and put it off. There's so many other projects I've done on this boat that it needed to be addressed. And so I've had this temporary tarp on the boat until I park it back on my parking pad, just to try to dry it out and address the issue. So the question is, what's the issue? This boat has a fold down tower, as you see. You know, it's got the box here, and what's interesting is that I thought it was something in this box. You know, there's a lot of things drilled into this top. You've got where the top is actually connected. There's a huge Allen wrench style bolt up here that connects it there. You've got this area of connection sort of up towards the middle. This is where outriggers would go. I didn't catch the fact that somebody had already put outriggers in this boat when I bought it. I knew they weren't with it. But what's interesting is that I've looked all around. I've started taking all of these plates off, and I'm going to reseal them with some 3M sealant because they need it, and I'm going to clean all that up. And you know, but that's this fold down crow's nest. That's the back end where the legs go, and so they attach right there. So my point being is that I have other things up here, like I had some rod holders on either side, port and starboard. I took those out thinking, oh, well, that's where my water's coming in. It's just draining right down into here. And after looking at it, maybe that's the issue, maybe not. And then I thought, well, it's where the crow's nests attach, or, you know, maybe it's something over here. There's a light right above here, right? Your white nighttime running light that you need to have up. I thought maybe that's leaking. But also, and this box will be redone, but also there's some other things up here, like the UHF. You can see a hole right there, but there's no sealant. That's where the GPS head goes. There's another hole right here, the UHF, no sealant on it at all. So I thought that might be an issue, but what's interesting is this whole box is dry. So if it was leaking in there, which I'm sure it was a little bit, and there's a little bit of funk in there, you know, I'm trying to find the source of the problem, and kind of took a break from this. I kind of just let it dry out a little bit. But what's interesting is if you look in this hole, this first hole, there's no mold and mildew, but back here there is. So kind of what that tells me, based on the way the boat sits, is that my problem is kind of like midship on the top. Like it's here back. And so again, thinking it was the rod holders, well, it seems like this is all one piece up top, so that still doesn't make sense. But I got on top of the boat today, and I noticed that for the first time ever, obviously these caps had been put in here because the outriggers have been taken off. And I don't know if it was from the previous owner did it right before I bought the boat and just didn't catch it. It's okay. I'm not, either way, I should have done a full inspection of the top. But I got on top of the boat and I noticed, obviously here you have holes drained and or drilled, excuse me. And I got up on top and there's nothing to plug those holes. And so I looked up underneath here, and you can't really see it, but there's tons of mildew and stuff. And it must be, the only reason, the only way I can think it is that it's getting between what is not a solid piece on this top, and it's running down in there somehow. So it's got to be here, which is the crow's nest attachment, the fishing rod holder. That is one possible source, that one point of attachment. But again, I just don't think it is, you know, but we're going to take it apart. But what I'm really concerned with is how much funk is around this thing all over the place when I push this top up that you really can't see. So I'm going to take everything off the top of this boat, literally, and reseal it. And there's tons of holes on this boat. Unfortunately, look, there's two more right there where some kind of an outrigger clip, I assume, you know, was unscrewed, no sealant was put in it. I don't know how far that goes. And I'm not complaining, I'm just saying this is what it's all about with a used boat when you're buying a used boat. Another thing, you know, and again, I'm looking at all improvements I can make to the boat. Something else that I noticed that I did is I ripped up this Igloo Cooler, this factory Igloo Cooler that was in here because it's just big and goofy, and I'd rather put a Yeti in here, you know, one of your larger ones, so I can put bigger fish in addition to the fish box. But these feet were just kind of annoying, and so I got rid of the cooler, but I haven't plugged the holes. So I've been riding around with that like that for a year and a half. So I'm not pointing the finger at the previous owner. All I'm doing is saying, like, I'm not even being aware of me putting holes in something as important as a flat surface that gets a lot of rain on it. Up under this top is not so important, but exposed down in here, you're basically letting water get in through the gel coat, which is just, it's not smart. And so what I'm doing here in this video basically is looking around and sealing all these holes that have been left by myself and the previous owner. And I'm going to go around, there's lots more, you know, in various places. On the top, definitely. And I'm going to use the mess out of some 3M sealant and get this thing right. And so, anyways, I just wanted to share with you, you know, something as far as buying a used boat, especially you get up into the 10-year range, you know, you're going to have stuff like this. But the question is it sealed? Is it properly taken care of? Anything that's along the water line, I always pay great attention. But inside the boat, I just don't think about it a whole lot. And obviously, it's caught up with me on the top here, as I'm showing you. I've got obviously some kind of water penetration somewhere on the top. So like I said, we're going to actually go ahead and remove basically everything and just reseal it to be 100% sure. And definitely holes like this. You've got these two holes, and obviously, you know, a dome goes on top of that one to the right. But, you know, I never, this one right here, you know, I use 5300 on everything on a boat, you know, and it's expensive, you know, $15 a tube, but it's worth it, and it lasts if you do it right. So I'm having to go back in places and put that sealant where it was never put. And see right here, you've got rusty bolts. You know, again, water penetration, it's going to happen. So I'm going to take all that off and just reseal it and clean up the bolts, maybe get some new, these plastic washers that you see right here. I'm basically going to redo all that as far as this top goes. And what's so scary, another thing, is on some of these bolts up here, what they do and I've taken them off the boat, so maybe I can show you when I'm buttoning it back together. But what you've got here is these bolts is you've got what size was it? It's a 7/16 nut, and then beneath it there's like a crown nut that's one size larger. I believe it's, I guess that would be what, 1/2 inch. I'm not really sure, but so those are so loose, not just on the crow's nest, but all around the boat. It's really kind of scary. Not to say that the top is flying off, because these Allen wrench bolts up here are super tight. So it's not that the top was in danger. It's just all these connection points, number one, have no sealant, and number two, after 12 years of use, it's common sense is going to tell you, well, it didn't to me, but they're going to get loose and they need to be tightened. One more thing, I just want to show, this boat came rigged with the swing up ladder. I've taken it off temporarily because, like I said, I'm going to seal everything, so I've already actually removed all this. This is powder coating, and it's, you know, it's 12 years of use, and that's fine. You know, I'm not going to go through the trouble to have this entire structure taken off. It's not that bad. That's probably the very worst anywhere on the entire boat, is right there. Got some down at the feet right here, right there. And you can see, if I zoom in a little bit, right there. I'm not too worried about that. You know, I use my boat. It's not just about being pretty. So, and you can see here at the weld, getting a little crack, some cracks in the not in the actual weld, but just the powder coating. So these are the things I'm going to try to address while I've got this. You know, I don't know how many bolts, nuts that we've taken off. It's a lot. I don't know how many, bags and bags full, and I've labeled them so I don't mess anything up. But also underneath this ladder, people climb up on top of the boat. A lot of pressure goes there. A lot of those are extremely loose. Again, my kids climb up there and jump off, not a problem. But you know, also water settles around there. There's a lot of salt water in and around that, so you know, that's something we're going to take a look at. And then there's a ladder holder here, but again, lots of salt water coming through there. And notice, you can see the blue tarp right through it. Not a stitch of 5300 in there. And I don't know if that's just Everglades thing, is that they put these little plastic washers in, and that kind of, you know, seals it. And I know that it definitely does, but I'm a huge fan, like I say, of sealing it. So that's what we're going to do here. And I'll just kind of showing you my journey as I go. I'll show a part 2 of the video when we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.